Reluctant Preppers provides educational awareness and commentary only. Opinions expressed do not constitute personalized financial advice. Viewers are encouraged to do their own research and seek qualified personal financial consultation before making investment decisions. Hey, Reluctant Preppers, if you haven't heard, we've already started our monthly 1-ounce U.S. Silver Eagle thank you gift to one active Patreon subscriber each month, signed by your host, Dunnigan Kaiser. And you don't want to miss out on that.
Please help us grow by subscribing today at patreon.com/reluctantpreppers.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Mike from Rethinking the Dollar, or RTD, is with us here again on Reluctant Preppers. He's going to talk to us about an ebook, The 4 Money Lessons You'll Never Learn in School. Mike, thanks for joining us here again on Reluctant Preppers.
Well, Dunnigan, it's great to be back on your show. I appreciate you, having me back on, and looking forward to connecting with you.
It's very heartwarming to see the response we got last time when we had you on. People really recognize your down-to-earth, straightforward way of just expressing yourself and just telling it like it is. People really appreciate that fresh, just straightforward, straight shooting response. That's something that they don't find a lot of. And this is a topic that my son and I have talked about a lot because we homeschooled, and he asked me a lot of questions. He always had a lifelong interest in money from the earliest age. I mean, absolutely the earliest age. And finally he got to be upper grade school, junior high age, and he starts just coming to me with some real thoughtful questions. Dad, where does money really come from, and how does it get its value, and who gets the right to give it to somebody in the first place when it's first created? Can you just answer those things, Dad? And I, as a good homeschooled parent, said, hey, why don't you do a research report on it, and we'll go through it together, just see how far you get. So he kept digging into it farther and farther, and this kid was like genius level. He'd come back to me and say, Dad, it's not making any sense. I've started learning about it, but it's just not making any sense. I thought, well, surely you just haven't found the right resources. So let's get you plugged in with some better experts. So I kind of stepped in and helped kind of matchmaker and get him plugged in with some places. And he talked to the bank president. He talked to an investment broker. He talked to and more, and he started talking to people about the foundation of the Federal Reserve and on and on. And pretty soon he came back to me and said, Dad, it's not helping. None of this is making any sense. If it is making sense, then something's really wrong. Yeah. So anyway, that's where it started out, and realizing that I came through the public school system and I learned zero about money in the public schools. He went through homeschooling, and the more we peeled back the onion, the more it smelled like a rotten smell coming out. So we thought we'd let you kind of set people straight. A lot of people have heard some of this stuff before, but I'm guaranteeing that I and everybody here is probably going to hear something that's new or from a new perspective. So could you take us from the beginning of 4 money lessons you'll never learn in school, and we'll just jump in wherever there's an opportunity.
Right, sounds good. So I appreciate you once again for sharing that with me. And so the idea of my the 4 money lessons, the simplicity of money is actually the name of the ebook, and I wrote it initially with the idea of how to bring in more people that's not monetarily informed. And so your audience, your community is well informed, of course, but there's millions of people out there that has no clue as to what money is, and some of the things that I would consider should be simple and should be taught in school. And so I myself, I went to a private school, as well as got a full college scholarship to college, and studied business and as well as entrepreneurship, but had no real foundation on what money was, nevertheless the value of it. And so in trying to figure out how to reach more people, why not make it something simple? And so the 4 money, which were, of course, no idea of my own. It was more so just having read and studied under a lot of Austrian economics mindset individuals. And so the 4 money lessons is sweet and simple, but I think one of the 4 is what's going to be more relevant to your viewers as well as those that are aware of the importance of understanding money, and that's the whole idea of value. And so just to give you the 4 off rip, it's the definition of money, how it went from sound money to certificates and to whereas now it's digital. So it lays a little bit of a foundation on how that process went about. The next one is just understanding what lawful money is in comparison to fiat currency. And so that has to do with a lot of historical aspects dealing with the Legal Tender Act, and then the value of money. And there's different ways of calculating and assessing value. And so in the book, I focus on nominal as well as somewhat of intrinsic and face value. And so I believe there's some key distinctions there that the audience can probably take away from to encourage themselves along the way, as well as to be able to share with others. And then the last one is, what is the Fed and how it came about? And how I mentioned that, believe it or not, the Federal Reserve note is a product of a private institution, which you guys know that, but it's no different than any other product that a business would issue or manufacturer to basically make a profit off of. And so it so happens that they use a credit of our government to print notes that we have to pay back interest on. So that's more so like a product of the central bank there. So that's kind of how the whole idea of simplicity came about. And so in the ebook, it's 37 pages long. I wrote it a while ago, but it's still relevant for those that are not informed. But most importantly, the concept of value. I think that's where we should all be focused on, because over at the RTD community page, a lot of people always concern themselves with, Mike, when is the price of silver, when is the price of gold going to go to its real value, and all the manipulation. So we always talk about that, but I'm trying to get more into solutions. And so once we understand the basics of how simple the subject matter can be, we would understand that sound money is real money. Fiat notes is just products of a private bank. Leave it at that. Don't worry about it, because the truth always happens to surface. And one of the ways that I like to share and ways I like to put it is that if you look at what value means and how we assess value in this day and age, it's completely different than it was, say, 50 or especially 100 years ago. And so nowadays we're in a digital age, in a digital society. And so most people focus on nominal value, being able to look at your screen or your phone, and you see you may have 5, 6, 7, 8 digits on your screen, and you assess value to that, given the fact that you know that as of right now, you can debit or credit that and it'll actually purchase something. But yet I believe in the years ahead, that form of value of just looking at a nominal number will be challenged. Hence what's happening all around us with Argentina. And they have, bill notes or whatnot with 5 figures on it now. So a couple years ago, $100 bolivar, $100 peso rather, was considered of high value, but is not anymore due to monetary practices or whatnot. And of course, you talk about Venezuela as well. So we all know what's happening there right now. So those same people were in our shoes not long ago, where they were looking at their screen. They were seeing 5, 6, 7 digits or whatever they may have in their savings or portfolio. But those same nominal digits right now don't retain the same value. So that's something I think that is going to change for us eventually, just because it has to, because nothing great lasts forever. And we've been able to milk the system and milk the globe for quite a while now.
Well, even what you describe is certainly something people can say it started in slow motion, but it's been going on for well over a century in our country. If you look at the book, what I'm trying to think of it is Walden Pond by Thoreau. He has an itemized list in there of the materials he had to go buy at the hardware store so he could build this little cabin for himself out on the edge of Walden Pond. And he all of his boards like 4.5 cents, and all the nails like 2.5 cents and stuff like that. And you go, wait a minute, we're talking about the same units? Yeah, those are the same nominal units there. And then we all can remember from our childhood. I mean, I remember, you could buy a full-size candy bar for $0.10 or 4 loaves of bread for $1 and that sort of thing. So we've seen that happen, but people think, well, that's okay because wages just keep going up. Although when we take a closer look at that, they don't go up at the same rate for sure.
Exactly, and that's very dangerous, because a lot of people get caught up in another form of value, which is the face value aspect. So we're used to asking for an actual nominal wage in the form of say $15 an hour. So people think if you actually have $15 an hour, you're better off. But in actuality, because of the money supply will have to increase, or there's going to be an increase of cost of goods and services that you need to acquire, it's going to be an even trade-off, if not a negative trade-off, because inflation will definitely make the price go up a lot higher than your nominal wage would be. And so that, to hit on another form of value, I call it emotional value. And so when you actually look at a $100 bill, I remember when I was younger, you get a $100 bill, there was so much excitement and so much emotion linked to that one piece of paper. Whereas now you get a $100 bill, the emotion isn't as strong because I know it doesn't go as far. And so it's inevitable to happen in everything that we denominate a Federal Reserve note in, because we're witnessing all around us now. So I think the value aspect is something we should pay attention to. And then when it comes to the simplicity of money, I start the book off with a quote that I believe has something to do with Henry Ford. And I was actually trying to find it online as an official source, and it's referenced to him, so I'm not sure if it's from him, but it does a great job of painting what could possibly happen if people were to wake up, and the day they do wake up, when they realize that the nominal value of what they've worked their entire lives to save and to use for their daily transactions isn't the same. And I have it in front of me here, so I'll read it. And it says, quote, "It is well that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there will be a revolution before tomorrow morning." And so in reading that again, the thing that jumps out is there will be a revolution before tomorrow morning. And so I'm thinking that there has to be a day of reckoning, hence the idea of massive protests and revolt and a revolution. So I can see, because of this whole value situation, when the smoke clears and people actually realize that everything they've worked hard for and saved has no true value in relevance to being able to pertain purchasing power, as well as some of the other properties of money, people are going to be very surprised. And not to be a doom and gloom type of person, but it's inevitable that there's protests that would turn into some form of revolution. So I think that quote there, which is referenced back in the 1930s, is relevant for this time and frame we're in now, because I believe, and I'm sure you might agree, that it's inevitable that when the truth hits the fan, there are going to be a lot of angry people out on the streets.
I'm wondering about that, because it seems like there's so much that we've been lost in terms of our true constitutional rights and liberties, as far as our true ability to be independent and free people and earn and keep the fruits of our labor and to keep the land and so on, that people have yielded and as generations pass, that becomes the new normal and the new normal to where we have a generation, we went through Generation X and now millennials and on, Generation Z, Alpha I think is next,
Right.
where the expectation just is, no, I expect everything to be with no currency, just credits, and everything to be paid for, either with some electronic card or just by waving my phone, or maybe I will get a chip in my hand. I don't know, maybe if it makes it more convenient. Just nobody. The next generation doesn't seem to retain their receipts. They don't seem to balance any kind of a checkbook or anything like that to make sure that everything reconciles at the end of the month. It's just all trusting the system, and I just show up and maybe I guess I have to pay my taxes, and well, I guess maybe I do deserve a universal wage after all. So the whole relationship of people's expectations to government and to the fruits of their own labor seems to be really guided and shifting from generation to generation from the 1930s to now. And then also the backbone of the spine of people to believe that they actually have the power and the indignation to stand up and say, this is wrong and we're going to do something about it together. I don't know. We've seen unrest. We've certainly seen riots and that sort of thing. But I'm not sure that it's... I don't know. It's a very good question for people to ponder. Is do we have the fiber and the character still retained in the way that we've been, I guess, dumbed down over the generations to
Right.
stand up for ourselves? But so I guess if you could take us back to what the right relationship is supposed to be between people and the fruits of their labor, and how that's been perverted and taken away from people.
Right. Well, throughout history, I'm a younger guy myself, so I haven't been around that long, rather. But just the ideal of any type of practical society is that you work hard, you pay your dues, you earn from your labor, and you're able to keep a good portion of that to sustain your life. But more importantly, be able to take a portion of that, set it aside, and it retains its value throughout time, to where you'll be able to hopefully acquire somewhat of the same amount of goods and services down the line. But as we all know, that's not the case. Once a central bank, or actually the third central bank, was put into place, which is what we're currently under now. And so what's interesting about the idea we're under a central banking model, the whole idea that it was initially supposed to be, I think, a 10 or 20-year charter. It was supposed to be renewed every couple of decades. And that the question of, renewing the charter for a central bank is no longer even in the question. So right now, people are so distracted, as well as, for most part, tapped out because of the increased burden to sustain your life now. It's no longer easy to put in a hard day's work at a job that would, quote unquote, pay somewhat of what people may want to say a fair wage, because what is fair now, when you have an elite group of people that's able to expand our monetary base via digitally, because I want to believe there's, say $30 or so trillion of digital Federal Reserve denominated instruments on this planet, with a very small supply of paper, which is going to be a problem in of itself. But the money supply has to continue to expand for this thing to go on. which only puts more strain and pressure on those that save those notes and digits, that nominal value we're talking about earlier, as well as those that are expecting to set something aside. But how can you set something aside when it's being diluted by the expansion of our monetary base? So it's just a matter of if something has to give, and it will. But yet the idea of being able to retain your hard economic energy that you put it out into this world in some form of some form of an asset is rare nowadays, but it's still possible. Hence the idea of the importance of understanding sound metals, which have always seemed to stand their weight, throughout society and throughout time. So, well, I think one day we'll get back to that point. And part of the what we're doing now, rethinking a dollar, is this. The November is hashtag Get Your Weight Up. And so I'm really encouraging people to take an interest in accumulating something tangible and physical that they can have in their possession. Stay away from things that are digitally attached to a metal that's supposed to be in somebody's vault somewhere. You run the risk of being a part of an experiment, hence to be a solution, because when things hit the fan, there's no guarantee you may be able to get to your actual possession. So it's better to just actually get your weight up and store your economic energy in something that has been proven to last during any type of monetary policy, as well as government deficit spending or whatnot. So I think that's where it all boils down to, is getting your weight up and making sure you're nice and heavy. Hence the idea of understanding the importance of sound metal. So I tell people, you don't put on the calories, but actually have some physical weight in your possession, to where when the monetary storm blows, you won't be blown over as fast as your peers probably will.
You make me think of two different things. One was my father-in-law, who's quite advanced in years, asking me back during basically the dot-com bubble on the stock market, where it seemed like everything was going up. I mean, the one year the NASDAQ went up 90% in 1 year and so on. And he was just bewildered, because he's looking at the value, the purchasing power of his savings just dwindling and dwindling down. So he sees everybody on the news talking about the booming stock markets, but he's thinking back to when he was working more than 2 jobs. He's working 3 jobs at times as a young father, when he first got married, and working as a parking lot attendant during the nights, and working as a truck dispatcher on a maintenance crew during the day, and so on. And so he's earning a couple dollars an hour at best back then. He's sticking it in the bank, and now that those dollars just don't have the value anymore. So his hard sweat of his brow, that he put in, now has very little purchasing power, and he's just feeling left behind. And he can just feel that life. Your years and your hours that you set aside for the future being drained away from you, out of your grasp. So that's one thing that comes to mind. And then the other one that you just brought up was this idea of accumulating physical gold, for example, and just how many people for whom that just is just mysterious and bewildering. They go, yeah, I guess gold is what people associate with wealth or whatever, but a lot of people have no idea how to get any. Right. We were just on an airplane trip, and I was noticing a father sitting next to his kids. He was a young guy from a different country, and he had some heavy gold chains around his neck, very visible. Yeah. I thought, okay, well, he's got the idea that part of having something that's real means really having it.
Now, my question would be, that gentleman you're referring to, I'm sure it's more of a fashion statement to him. And nowadays they have ways of gold coating things or whatnot. So if things hit the fan, I wonder if that gentleman would know that he's supposed to have some type of weight and value around his neck that he could use in a worst case scenario. And I would imagine that his first response is going to be look at his phone, look at his bank account, look at the computer, and he's going to see that, oh man, I'm losing. But then think about if you were on the other end of that and you were aware and prepared and you had some weight in your possession, you would be like, okay, well, my nominal value account is dropping, but then eventually I'm going to accrue some of that into the nominal value of those metals. Hence the whole idea of, I believe that, metals are considered to be sponges, and they're going to absorb all this liquidity that's out here currently. And once all the manipulation is done and the air clears, all the money that's going to come after the next recession or whatever is going to come will be absorbed into metals. And I think those that are sitting the heaviest will be the most comfortablest at the end of the day.
Some people criticize that whole concept by saying that's a historical, archaic, obsolete way of looking at that. And nope, that the era of that is gone now. Everything's new, everything's digital, and it's cryptocurrencies is where all the money's going to have to run into, because metals are of no practical use in an electronic world and that sort of thing. What are your thoughts around that?
I would tell people to bet on history. history is a good teacher for a reason. I mean, there's no reason why you should question something that's been successfully successfully ensuring people for thousands of years when it came time to their governments just doing what they do best. You know, they're trying to survive and they're trying to make promises in order to keep the positions that they're at. So it's only natural that they're going to look for ways to take their national currency or whatever it might be, a coin back in the day. The Mike Maloney series of the Roman Empire just came out recently. And so, you clip as much as you can, debasing the currency, which it happens all the time. So if you're a student of history, you know that it's inevitable for us. And when governments do that, the best thing to do is to insure yourself against your own politicians that are, doing what they consider to be best, but they're not economists. They're not people who actually concern themselves with anything outside the length of their term. So I would tell people to bank on history and not have your entire livelihood tied up into nominal and, the assumption of face value account that may not be there. Hence the idea of when they flood the water gates and open up the spigots from the Federal Reserve coming pretty soon, whatever you're sitting on will be diluted because it'll be more currencies trying to chase the same amount of goods. And of course, the law of supply and demand, when the demand or the supply rather of paper outsees the demand for them, the amount of goods and services don't change. It's just the fact that you got to adjust it on the other end by raising the cost. And so, I think Meadows do a good job of absorbing a lot of that liquidity. And it's all about being prepared for after the fact and, who knows what's coming. But, based upon history, I would bank and bet on history. And especially I tell people that, it's always good to be informed and aware of trends and the current paradigm shift that's underway now. So clearly the cryptocurrency sector is being positioned as an alternative, but it's more so geared and it's exciting the younger community. So they're going to put a lot of their bank into it. But one of the things I, joke around with is, I'm not able to give financial advice, but I got my 3 S's. And one is, you need some energy, economic energy to spend. You need something to speculate with, which I believe they used to call investing. And then you need something to save. And if I was to just use those 3 references there, I would save something that's proven by history, speculate with something that has potential, i.e. this blockchain technology, which is promising to some. And then I would spend the thing that doesn't retain its value that much. And I'm sure we know what that is. So that's just my little 2 cents of what I like to tell the RTD community.
So getting back to your ebook, The 4 Money Lessons You'll Never Learn in School, or Money Simplicity, you were talking about focusing on the one of those, and that's, I think you've been talking about that, which is this difference between nominal value and real store of value.
Right.
Anything else in that realm that we haven't touched on that you wanted to make sure and cover today?
Yeah, I would imagine, I would encourage people really, when it comes to value, never mind the nominal price of sound money right now because it's irrelevant because we all know what's going on behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, if you understood and understand and the difference between a sound and lawful money, like if you just Google lawful money, you'll come up with hundreds of articles that were written back in the days when journalism was real and people were able to express their opinions. There's a lot of critics of the monetary policies in the earlier part of the 20th century. And so there's a lot of people who share their thoughts on the need for lawful money to hedge against what's happening around them. But yet we've been reduced to just a fiat currency, of course, after 1971. So there's still 2 forms of money available to us, but yet most people aren't aware of it. So if you know about lawful money and you know the consequences of fiat currency, then the value concept becomes that much more alive. And then you'll understand that, lawful money is actually a measurement of weight. In 1792, during the Coinage Act of 1792, the very first legalized document given to our country for what money would be, it was an actual a number in reference to silver. So right. Silver was the primary number there. And so since then, we went on to a bilateral standard or whatnot with gold and silver. But anyway, it's a weight. So people, when you think about dollar, think of weight. And then hence the idea of, I tell people, get your weight up because weight is what will sustain you. Like, when's the last time you saw a treasure ship on the bottom of the ocean with some paper notes in it? Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen. But you hear all the time of treasure ships popping up, and there'd be millions of trillions of worth of coins because history has proven that the heaviest ships tend to sink and they remain there. So I don't want you to sink, but yet you want to definitely be, weighted down when the storm blows. So that's the whole idea behind value. Get your weight up. And so if I may, as I mentioned over at Rethinking the Dollar, this month of November is Get Your Weight Up month. And so me and the community over there, we're sharing a lot of information in reference to Get Your Weight Up. And so I know you're SD Bullion affiliate, and so I am as well. And so just for this month here, they're looking to do something that I was begging them for months to do, and it's the idea of helping people get their weight up in a way that's probably a little bit more affordable. Because when most people think about acquiring gold, you think about a 1 ounce coin at $12.50 right now, and not too many people actually can go in and drop $12.50 and walk out with something that can preserve their wealth. And so I was telling them, I believe that the true way to get people involved in gold is to give them the smallest thing you have, and that's 1 gram. And so, right before me here, I have a 1 gram. And so over at SD Bullion, they're doing a deal with the code RTD, and you can get a 1 gram at dealer cost, which is not, I've searched around, and that SD Bullion has the best deals, period. And so you can actually get a 1 gram ounce of gold or 1 gram piece of gold for dealer cost, which is unprecedented. So I'm getting my weight up, and I'm telling everybody that is watching this, whether you're a customer or not, you have the opportunity to get your weight up as well. So I would encourage you to do that. And then also to share with your audience, just to let you know how important getting your weight up is. Alan Greenspan, everyone's familiar with him. He's actually the second longest tenured Federal Reserve chairman we've had. And everyone knows he was a gold bug prior to becoming chairman. But yet he has a article called Golden Economic Freedom. And so I actually did some revision of that, and I put an opportunity in there for the viewers. And so if you're interested, I made a special link for you guys, and it's rethinkingthedollar.com/RP. RP, the letters RP for Reluctant Preppers. So if you guys want, I would encourage you to take a look at that, because it gives you the true nature of what gold should be from the person who was behind the current manipulation that we're under now. So I think you can learn a lot from the people who changed the game and changed the system on us. So definitely want to encourage you guys to take advantage of that and get your weight up.
Hey, Mike, besides those opportunities, your ebook, Money Simplicity, the 4 Money Lessons You'll Never Learn in School, is that still published? Is that still online?
Yes, it is. And so part of that, that was printed and published on the website, so rethinkingthedollar.com. And so that's step 2 of what I considered a 3-step process for educating yourself. And it was more so geared towards newbies, but I would also challenge some of your viewers. Part 1 is a 10-question quiz that's been going now for about 4.5 years now. And every now and then I happen to look at the results, because it's, you answer 10 questions, and it's all in relation to the word dollar in our monetary system. And surprisingly, to this day, the average of the hundreds of people that are taking our test is like 30%. So, the questions were something I tried to make as basic as possible, but people are failing our tests left and right. And so once you take the test, then the goal would be to go get the ebook, because I cover all the things that were in that 10-question quiz, and I shine light on it. So that's how the origins of the book came about, because I want to get some people to participate. So just for fun, I would encourage you to take it. I know you would probably do well, but a lot of people be surprised that there's some questions out there that you'd be like, I'm not sure, but it's timed as well, so I can tell who's doing a little Google research. So, because if you can answer, if it takes you 5 or 6 minutes, then you probably did some studying in the midst of answering that, and your score will be high. But if you take it honestly, you'll be surprised, and it's just a way to get people involved. That's what it's about, reaching new people.
It's funny because some people think, oh, I'm not interested in that, but it's like, wait a minute, do you go to work just for the joy of doing the job, or do you also go to work because you actually want the rewards that come from that, and how it affects your life and your future and your security in your future? And you got to understand, because we're talking about how we store up the results of our work, and so we can use it again in the future to protect ourselves, our families, and what's coming. So.
And another note, in reference to that, when people say the dollar never failed, the dollar this time, I'm like, well, no matter what, this subject matter right now, it might be a little premature to a lot of people, but this subject matter, it will come to your front door. It's a mathematical certainty. I can guarantee you that. I'm sure we will agree. The subject matter will come to your front door. It's better to be prepared when that knock happens, or you read on the news, the stock market crash, the dollar. You might want to be prepared. So it will come to you. I would rather go to it than have it come to me personally.
We've been speaking with Mike from Rethinking the Dollar. Tonight is Thursday, October 8th, 2018. Mike, thank you once again for joining us on Reluctant Preppers. We'll be glad to have you back and talk about some of the other lessons that you've brought out since this early ebook and shared with your viewers, and that ours would also be interested in as well.
All right, Duncan, I appreciate you having me on your show. And once again, thanks for everything you do. Continue to encourage and educate. And let's try to bring in more people so that we can send them out as opposed to have it come to them. And so that's going to be the bad part. So thank you for having me on your show again.
Excellent. Thank you.